Your hand is already moving toward the mouse.
You're about to close the tab. Not because you're done, you haven't started yet, but because the weight of the blank page just hit you, and something in your body said, not now. Maybe after one more video. Maybe after you've thought about it a little more. The feeling is so familiar, you barely notice it anymore. It's just what happens between the excitement and the beginning. It's past midnight and you're lying in bed, pulse elevated, mind moving through a new idea. A business, a channel, a body of work that will finally make people see you the way you've always known you could be seen. The path is so vivid, you can practically walk it. You feel like a version of yourself that hasn't been compromised yet. And that feeling, not the idea, but the feeling, is what you're actually chasing.
Morning arrives and the spell breaks.
The laptop opens, the cursor blinks, and you discover that you're no longer excited. You're slightly nauseous. The gap between what you imagined and what you're capable of producing right now has appeared, and it is enormous. So you do what you always do. You back away. You tell yourself you're just preparing. You're a perfectionist. You have high standards. You're still searching for what you're truly meant to do, and that's why you keep starting things without finishing them. These explanations work. They've worked for years. Perfectionism sounds disciplined. High standards sound like integrity. Searching for passion sounds romantic. But here is the question that eventually finds everyone who lives this way. What if these aren't reasons? What if they're alibis? What if you learned the right words to describe your behavior so you'd never have to look at what's actually driving it? Being called talented is intoxicating. Being told you have potential might be the most addictive compliment a person can receive. And here's why. Potential functions like a psychological currency. You can walk into a room, describe what you're going to do, and watch people invest in you. Their eyes light up, you feel seen, you feel special, and you haven't produced a single thing. You've just traded on a possibility, one that is by definition perfect. No flaws, no compromises, no disappointing results. The most beautiful version of you, suspended in amber, never tested against reality. Now contrast that with actually starting. The first thing you make is clumsy, embarrassing. The distance between your taste and your ability becomes physically painful. The perfect fantasy gets replaced by something awkward and ordinary and not at all what you promised yourself. And your brain, which is not stupid, runs the emotional math. Why would I exchange a perfect, untested version of myself for a flawed, real one? Why would I cash in a currency everyone accepts for a result that might impress no one?
You stay in the warm place where everything is still possible.
But something else is happening beneath that calculation. Something harder to admit. What you are actually protecting is not your future. It's a fantasy of the omnipotent self. The self that could be great at anything. The self that has never been measured and found ordinary. The self that still holds every option open. If you never fully commit to anything, you never have to face the possibility that you might not be exceptional. You might just be average. And for someone whose identity is built entirely on being smart, being gifted, being different, that possibility doesn't feel like a disappointment.
This is why you fear both failure and success. Failure confirms what you're running from. Success is almost worse.
Because success moves the baseline. Now people expect things.
You expect things.
And your next attempt might fail.
Which would mean losing not just a round, but an identity. So hovering in the amber of potential
becomes the only strategy that feels survivable. But there's a scene I want you to see. You're at a dinner, or on a call, and a friend is talking about something they've been doing for 5 years. Something unglamorous. Something you remember them being clumsy at when they started. And as they speak,
you notice something in their voice. It's not confidence exactly. It's texture.
They know the names of problems you've never heard of. They describe small, specific failures that taught them something. They have depth. And you realize, sitting there, that you have opinions about this topic. You've read threads. You've watched videos. You know the surface landscape. But you can't speak from inside it. You've never stayed long enough to get inside anything. The feeling that arrives in that moment is not easy to name. It's not quite jealousy. It's closer to grief. Grief for all the selves you almost became. All the versions of you that got abandoned at the research phase, the equipment buying phase, the moment before the hard part began. While you were busy guarding the idea of your unlimited potential, other people were becoming real. You feel it somewhere in your chest, a hollowing.
This is what the maintenance cost of that fantasy actually looks like. You have to keep finding new domains to restart the cycle. Places where you can be a beginner again, feel that flash of early progress, and leave before the steep part of the curve. You have to downplay other people's achievements to preserve your self-image. You have to keep convincing yourself that the real thing just hasn't appeared yet, that your actual life is still around the next corner. You are not resting. You are running an exhausting marathon inside a very small room. And here is the reversal that is difficult to hear, but necessary to absorb. The strategy you built to protect a great version of yourself is the precise mechanism that guarantees you will never become that person. You constructed a fortress to keep failure out, but you locked yourself in with mediocrity. You avoided a definitive judgment on your abilities by never submitting evidence. But a life without evidence is not a life full of potential. It is a life that year after year becomes indistinguishable from someone who simply never tried. You are no longer a person with potential. You have become a full-time guardian of potential. Your job is not to create. Your job is to preserve the possibility of creation. And that job takes everything. The next time you feel that electric rush, the new idea, the clean slate, the certainty that this is finally it, pause. Don't buy the domain name. Don't announce anything. Just sit with the feeling and ask, is this the pull of genuine curiosity? Or is this the familiar shape of an exit door? Is this a beginning? Or is it a shelter I'm building because the last project just got hard? Watch the architecture of the feeling. Notice how it always arrives right when the current thing becomes difficult. How it always offers a fresh identity with no failures attached. How it makes you feel like a genius again before you've done a single piece of work. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. And once you can see it, it no longer owns you completely. The aim is not to become fearless. The aim is to become someone who can tell the difference between the fear of being ordinary and the actual texture of becoming something real. That work will not feel glamorous. It will involve long stretches of looking and feeling like someone who hasn't figured it out. That is not a failure of the process. That is the process. There is a version of you that actually begins, that stays, that stacks unremarkable day on top of unremarkable day until something exists that wasn't there before. That person is not the most impressive version of you in your imagination. But that person is breathing, taking up space in the real world, trading infinite empty possibility for one finite, imperfect, actual thing. That is not a downgrade. That is a birth. If this kind of work feels worth staying with, subscribe. There's more here for people who are choosing to become real.